Who am I? Are you sure you want to know? The story I'm about to tell you is not for the faint of heart. But like any other story worth telling, it's all about a trilogy. The Holy Trilogy. The infamous Sam Raimi trilogy. Wait, are we really ripping off High Top Films right now? It's the year 2002. Nickelback is at the top of the charts, the X-Men movies are relatively successful, and Sony Studios has acquired the rights to make a movie out of Marvel's most beloved character, Spider-Man. So what do? Hire a director from a few low-budget horror movies. You may have heard of them. I think they're called Evil Dead. This was, in my opinion, a very solid decision. Because, as the thumbnail points out, these movies still hold up today. And I honestly think they're even better now than they were back then. It's my goal in this video to explain why. And to do that, I'll need to spoil some things. But these movies are now 19 years old, so if you haven't seen them, you might be slipping. Let's get into this. I already know y'all are going to hit me in the comments with, "Kenny, those Raimi Spider-Man movies are so cheesy, I don't like them." So let's get this right out of the way. Aside from the plenty of memeable moments like,
"I'm something of a scientist myself,"
and
"back to formula,"
from the man Norman Osborn himself, I don't feel like these movies are all that campy. But when they are, it's very purposeful. There is not one single frame in this movie that doesn't exist for a reason. Every time I watch these movies, I am reminded that Raimi and everyone else involved really loved Spider-Man. But they didn't want to make just a good Spider-Man movie. They wanted to make a good film. The pacing of this movie is incredible. Within the first 15 minutes of the film, we are not only introduced to our main character, but his best friend, the man that'll become our villain, and our hero's love interest. Not to mention that he gets bit by the freaking spider, all before we leave the museum. Sam Raimi allows us to get the big plot stuff out of the way quickly so that we can dive into the characters. And this is the biggest reason I keep returning to these movies every few years. One thing I've always really enjoyed about them is the dynamic between Peter, Norman, and Harry. The way that we, from the very first scene, know that Harry and Norman have a somewhat abusive relationship, to then seeing Norman value Peter over Harry, it's just good filmmaking. And my hat is off to the team that put this together. This movie wastes no time, but it still feels like it takes time. Why? Because of the characters. Now, in today's era of superhero movies, we see a lot of movies that are plot-driven. I'm not against this as long as it's done right, but Raimi and team understood the core values of who Spider-Man is, and I think that it is very apparent in these films. Peter doesn't have some special blood. He wasn't chosen to fight. He's just a nerdy high school kid that was given extraordinary abilities. But instead of doing what 99% of other high school kids would do with these abilities by screwing around and doing whatever he wants, he understands this simple concept.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Peter Parker is the best of us, and this movie understands that. This movie takes its time to let us learn about our characters. We don't only get to see Spider-Man swinging from buildings, which for 2002 still holds up today, but we spend a lot of time with the man under the mask. We get to know Peter Parker. In the first Spider-Man movie, Peter is so consumed by his duty as Spider-Man, he never gets to live a normal life, even going so far as to give up his chances with the woman he loves. And I'm going to dive deeper into the MJ and Peter relationship in part 2 of this series, but it's who he is. It's his responsibility. I talk a lot about movies and shows having heart, but what does that mean? To me, a piece of media having heart is a piece of media that makes me feel something. And the Raimi Spider-Man movies make me feel something every time I watch them. Because this Spider-Man is real. Because to me, it feels like they understand that Spider-Man would not be Spider-Man without the man. This Spider-Man is a real and human character. Raimi understood that. So he gave us a man that turns into Spider-Man. But let's talk about the city. One thing I've always really liked about Spider-Man comics is the city of New York feels like its own living, breathing character. And Raimi knew this. By not only filling each scene with wall-to-wall extras, but also having plenty of scenes where the city itself help out Spidey. I'll dive into the train scene in part 2, but let's look at the climax of the original.
You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us!
To me, this is one of the most iconic lines to come out of a Spider-Man movie so far. So why does this work? Remember when I said there wasn't one single frame in this movie that didn't have purpose? I always thought it was a little odd on my first watch that we got an interview-style montage of people reacting to Spider-Man. But now, I'm so glad we did. To me, it made the city feel alive, because we get to see the average everyday citizen as more than just an extra in the background. We get to hear their voice. The last point I want to make about why the Raimi Spider-Man movies are better than you remember is Harry. James Franco gets bagged on a lot for his over-the-top performance. But if you watch these movies again, it's pretty clear that Raimi planned for Harry to be the main villain of Spider-Man 3. The setup for his character slowly turning to the dark side was very well handled. And it's a shame that the studio and fans bullied them into making this.
So good.
And looking back on it, I'm mad at myself for not respecting the artist's vision and freaking out online when I found out that Venom would be in the third one. To sum it up, the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy are character-driven movies with near-flawless setup and pacing. Did they stick the landing? Not exactly, but I'll get to that. Hit subscribe so you can get notified when I drop part 2. Also, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like. I'm out of here. Peace!
Brother, it's caught in the crossfire. It's caught in the crossfire.